All right, so this is Math 005, Lesson 4, Part 3, and we're starting section 2.5 in the book, and we're talking about inequalities, and there's some information that I want to make sure everybody has before we go too far afield in the idea of inequalities. Many of you have seen or heard some of these symbols, and that's great. I want to make certain that we're like really clear on what's happening though, and how our notation is written. All right, so to have something greater than, right, we have this kind of this sideways V opening to the left, and because there's no bar underneath that sideways V, we say it's strictly greater than. That means it does not include the value. All right. So if you were to say x is greater than 5, you would not include 5. All right. It's not equal to 5. It's greater than, strictly greater than 5. Similarly, less than, if you don't have that bar underneath indicating that it's an equals, then you have strictly less than, and you're not going to include that information or that value into your solution. Now, I do want to point out, if you have greater than or equal to, and I want to actually do a little bit with this, if you have greater than or equal to, effectively you have an equals sign here, and I'm drawing this out, maybe not as ideally as I would like, but the idea is there. You can see, okay, this is greater than, and then there's the equals. Similarly, if you have the less than or equal to, we're going to have this equals right here. So you can see, even though it's got the less than to it, it's also got the equals attached to it. Now, when we're writing this on a number line, or we're writing it out in what's called interval notation, there's some things that we need to keep in mind as well. All right, if I have an open dot, right, like this one is an open dot here, it's hollow, it's not filled in, that means we do not include the value. All right, that would be a strictly greater than or strictly less than. If we have a solid dot, if we have it filled in, that means we do include it, and that means it's a greater than or equal to, or a less than or equal to. When we're doing the interval notation, there's two kinds of ways that you can talk about it. One is going to include, it's going to be strictly greater than or strictly less than, and then you're going to have greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. So you're going to either include or not include the value. So let me go ahead and scroll this up a little bit. And I want to kind of go over this. So our lowest value, we would have a square bracket, and we're saying we include it. And if you want to think about it like that, and I'm doing this in a different color so that hopefully it's clear, there's my equals. I'm saying I am including that value. When I have a paren like this, there is no equals. This is the same as saying an open dot. We're not including the value that's listed right here. Okay? We would talk about our highest value and included. Again, here is my equals kind of hiding in my symbol for the less than or equal to, right? This is saying that whatever's there, this is as big as it gets, right? This is our highest value, and it does include that value. When we have a paren here, right, that's again our highest value. It's closing that, saying, okay, that's the upper value of it, but we're not including it. All right, and this is one that's a concept that's a little kind of throws people sometimes, and I want to just address it real briefly. If you have infinity, either positive or negative, right? I'm going to say positive or negative infinity. That's a concept. There is no such actual like number. It's the idea that however far you go down the number line or how far you go up the number line, there's always somewhere further to go. So since that's a concept, we say there's no way to actually get there, so there's no way to be equal to it. So we use parens, okay? We always use parens whenever we're talking about, we've got an infinity involved there, whether it's a negative infinity to positive infinity, or whether we've got a negative infinity to some value, or positive value to positive infinity. We have parentheses involved with our infinities because it's a concept, not an actual value. So I'm going to go ahead and just scroll this up a little further. And I've gotten a couple of these here, and I'm going to show you both ways of writing this. In this case, I'm saying I have x is less than 7. Here's my 7 on my number line. I can do two things. I could do an open circle and then an arrow facing this way, right? So I'm saying everything less than this. Or I could say a paren and write it like this. And if I were to write this in interval notation, okay, realize I'm aiming towards this negative infinity. So my negative infinity is going to be my bottom value. And we've just talked about the fact that it's going to be with a paren on it because that's a concept, not a number. Okay, it's a useful concept related to numbers, but it's not an actual number. So we've got our negative infinity, and then we're saying we're going to go up to 7, but we're not including 7. All right, 7 is as large as it gets, but we don't include the 7. So that's going to give me a paren like that. That's my interval notation. All right. Here, I have something very similar. In this case, I have my values. I have a strictly less than, and then I have a less than or equal to. So I'm going to show both of these, and I'm going to have the values in between. My x's are going to fall in between this -3 and the 5. So here I have my -3. I'm saying it's strictly less than, so I'm going to have an open dot, right? That's not including my -3. Here I am including my 5. So I'm going to fill that dot in. And then I'm going to have everything in between here. Right? There's my values in between. Now I could do similar to this. I could say I have a paren, an opening paren, and I have a square bracket here. And my values are everything in between. And again, this is, I mean, if you think about it, this is exactly the same statement. When we do it in terms of interval notation, instead of being on our number line, we're going to say -3 with a paren in front of it. And then I'm going to say 5 and have a square bracket. So this setup does this for you. It basically tells you what this is going to be. All right, so hopefully that is helpful. We're going to talk more about inequalities here in a moment, but I want to make sure that you have this information kind of going into those lessons.